Hello again. This is Will Luden and Max. Max, my buddy. This is Will Luden, your host at Revolution 2.0, a revolution of the heart. And you may have noticed that we're beginning the transition to Take 10 with Will Luden. That will be the new website. That will be the new everything. And it's more reflective. It tells more about what we're doing together with the new title, Take 10 with Will Luden. Today's episode is Ponder These Curiosities and Get Back to Me. And together, we are at episode 399, creeping up on 400. So, today's episode, we're going to have some fun. We enjoy ourselves in most of our episodes, but today's episode is to have some fun as we look at things that I call everything from everyday wisdom to political conundrums, oddities, with some truths mixed in. Some of these will reveal wisdom. Others reveal deceit and lazy ignorance designed to advance agendas. So let's start with one that I think almost everyone has seen. And that is the sign at the rental car return that says, "Do not back up, severe tire damage." They want you to bring the cars back, but on the one-way spikes. And if you're enjoying this on YouTube, you'll see a picture of the one-way spikes. They want you to bring your car back on the one-way spikes, not steal cars going the wrong way on the spikes. But do not back up. Severe tire damage. Good advice for life? I think so. My body, my choice. This claim is used to both reject things like mandatory vaccines and to support abortion. In neither case do the claimants who say, my body, my choice, bother to explain why they think it's my body only. They don't use facts and logic to explain that, to defend it. They just say it. And it's time to dump those cliches which we think we can make true by saying them louder and louder and over again. Facts and logic, folks. Defend positions. So we're going to continue with a fun one. Fruit at bottom is written on a lot of yogurt containers. Yep, you got to work for it to get to the fruit. Kind of like life. You got to work for the treats. You got to work for the fruit at the bottom. Pro-life, pro-choice. Who isn't pro-choice in almost every situation, in most situations in life? Who isn't pro-life in almost every situation in life? So the different sides use these misleading phrases, as in, who could possibly, isn't everyone for choice? Isn't everyone for life? Well, no. A lot of people who use the phrase pro-choice in order to support their views on abortion are not pro-choice when it comes to, for example, school choice. And a lot of people who use pro-life to defend their position in the abortion issue are for capital punishment. So let's stop intentionally using misleading phrases. Own it. You're for abortion, you're against it, and why, and what are the degrees of freedom that you're willing to allow if you're for it or against it. Here's a fun one. Daylight savings times. Oh, balderdash. An old word for nonsense. There's no savings. It's daylight shifting time. So let's call it what it is. Daylight shifting time, and then get rid of it. Come on now. It's noon when the sun is at its peak. That's noon. Look it up. The AMA, the American Medical Association, supposedly comprised of very educated people, has declared obesity to be a disease. And in rare cases, it is. But the reason they called it a disease is so they can bill for talking to someone about losing weight or giving them pills. You can't bill for instructions like move more and eat less. So they call it a disease so they can bill for it. And it's not. Losing weight requires discipline. Ask me. Losing weight requires discipline, but it's not a disease. And we're burning our food. Yes, that's what I said. We're burning our food. For example, the government requires corn ethanol to be used in gasoline, in spite of the fact that food is becoming scarce in some cases, and certainly high priced in all cases. We're taking corn that can be used for food, insisting that it be turned into part of what goes into our gas tanks. And corn ethanol yields very low mileage, is hard on the engines, and raises the price of food. That seems like three loses. Instead of win-win-win, it's lose-lose-lose. Diversity and inclusion. Does protecting vulnerable minorities include protecting minority thoughts and opinions? Does protecting vulnerable minorities include protecting minority thoughts and opinions? And why not? Warehousing people. Yep, we're warehousing people. When it comes to the homeless and the aged, we don't seem to be very willing to encourage them, to stimulate them, to show them how, to encourage them, to lead them to be more productive. All we're doing is feeding them and housing them and keeping them out of sight so we don't have to think about them. And then we can try to feel good about feeding them and housing them and keeping them out of sight. Stalin. You've heard me talk about Stalin before. Stalin said that the death of one person is a tragedy. The death of 1 million people is a statistic. And we show that he's right about that over and over again. Notably, or not notably, but including in the area where the rare cases, the rare awful cases, a handful of a year, where law enforcement murders blacks. That's awful, unacceptable, and should be punished. And certainly, in recent years, those perps have been punished to the full extent of the law, and I love it. But what about the thousands of blacks who murder each other? Where is the anguish there? The few cases where the few egregious cases where law enforcement murders blacks, those are the tragedies because there's only a few of them. But when there's thousands, they become a statistic, and we don't seem to care. Yes, Black Lives Matter, absolutely. My question is, do all Black lives matter? And why not? Not long ago, words like, boy, we're shifting around a lot. So follow the bouncing ball and let's do this together. Not long ago, words like pimp, hoe, and hustle, when it was used to talk about raising money or working, these were critical. These were really not good things. It used to be that pimps took advantage of the hoes that they kind of owned. And a hustler was a con man. Are the changes in our language a series of coincidences, or is there kind of an ugly trend here? I think it's an ugly trend. I'm going to pull up another case here with movies. 1943, movie The Outlaw came out, and it was highly controversial. And there's a picture of a fully clothed Jane Russell. The only skin you can see is her left shoulder and her face. But the motion picture was forced to cut 40 seconds of the movie out, and 20th Century Fox refused to distribute it. And again, if you're enjoying this on Facebook, you can see the picture of Jane Russell, which would not cause much of a stir at all today. And that was a huge to-do in 1943. And far more than her left shoulder and her face, if you want to see full frontal nudity, just get a Netflix description. And it's all over the place. And the sad part isn't just that it exists, but it's so commonplace, people don't even talk about it. It's an ugly slide, and we need to stop it. Here's another one that I've talked about before. We've talked about together. In a country of 330 million people, why can't we get better candidates for president, for senator, for governors? Why are we frequently talking about, well, I'm voting for the lesser of two evils? Remember, by definition, the lesser of two evils is still evil. We, the voters, we, the people, need to stand up and insist that we get better candidates. We can't just criticize the parties for giving us Tweedledee and Tweedledum. We need to stand up and make the change ourselves. Debt, another topic we've talked about before. Debt is a four-letter word. Individuals and families should never finance anything that depreciates. Governments should never run up debt that it can't repay. The federal government, hitting what, $29-30 trillion, cannot repay the money. We will never repay that. It will continue to grow. All we're ever going to be able to do at the clip we're on, and we'll never be able to replay it. Maybe we can reduce it a little bit, but we'll never repay it. The best we can do is pay the interest on that massive debt every year. Imagine as an individual or a family knowing that you were never going to pay off your massive credit card debt, but all you could do for the rest of your life is pay the interest. And that's exactly where we are in the federal government. We'll never repay it. The best we can do is to keep up with the interest payments. And here's a lighter note. Timeshares. I've never met anybody who liked their timeshare. Yet, they keep selling them and people keep buying them. Why is that? Closing on a familiar theme. Life is hard, as it should be, as it must be. And once we get that, life becomes a lot easier. And a pox on those people who say that life ought to be easy, and if it's not, that you're a victim and deserve compensation. Accepting being a victim is sad and unnecessary. Creating victims is cruel and wrong. We all have the responsibility to say what we mean and mean what we say, as the old saying goes. And perhaps more importantly, when we say what we mean, to actually have done some research, to be certain of what it is that we're saying. We have that personal responsibility. And speaking of personal responsibility, that one does not stand alone. The two main principles at Revolution 2.0, morphing into Take 10 with Will Luden. The two main tenets are, number one, personal responsibility. Take it, teach it. And number two, be your brother's keeper. The answer to the age-old question, am I my brother's keeper, is a ringing, resounding yes. There can be no other answer. So where do you stand? What are you going to do? Because remember, it doesn't matter where you stand if you don't do anything. And you can take positive, effective action today. Start by subscribing, encouraging others to subscribe with you. Give us a like, good review. If you're on YouTube, hit that notification bell so you'll know every time we put out a new episode. And whatever you do, whatever I do, whatever we do, do it in love. Without love, anything we do is empty. This is Will Luden. Talk to you next time.
You've been listening to Take 10 with Will Luden. If you've enjoyed the stimulating, passionate, and relentless reasoning, we encourage you to get out there and do something. Follow Will Luden and learn more at willluden.com.